Hello, everyone. I am Mary Haberman, and I am going to give a demonstration on intuitive painting for a painting that I am donating to the Wabasso Public Schools Gala fundraiser. And this type of painting is called intuitive painting. And so, what intuitive painting means is that you just get some random color shapes on the canvas and then we just see where it goes. And so the first color I'm using is just some yellow here, and this is a little bit brighter than I would normally use. So I'm getting some water in there to make sure that it kind of blends. And this yellow is uh, this is just a watercolor that I'm using to kind of blend this all in. Um, what intuitive painting generally is kind of just random shapes, random colors. Well, for me, this yellow represents my happiness. I have quite a bit of things to be grateful for in my life, and so I am using this yellow to represent that happiness that I have for my life. And you can see that it's very uneven. That's fine. We want it to be uneven for what we're doing. And I've just got a kind of a nice coat. Now, what you see on the camera is not exactly what it looks like, but the idea is to show the technique, not necessarily the actual colors that you're going to get. And so this represents my happiness, and you can see that it's taking up uh, more of this corner than half. And so then this corner is going to be the opposite of happiness, and that's sadness. We all have things that make us sad in life, and my sadness feels like ocean waves. So I'm just going to kind of paint some like blue waves and kind of spread that out and get those colors, that color spread out. It doesn't, I said that it feels like ocean waves. This intuitive painting, what happens is we get these shapes and colors on the page, but they don't always necessarily stay where they are. They don't necessarily um, stay the color they are. They don't stay the shape that they are. But for right now, mine is, we're just going to treat it like it's a blue ocean wave. And right here, you can see this bump just kind of got a little out of control. And you know, that is true with life as well, that sometimes our sadness threatens our happiness, and it comes pretty close to ruining our happiness. And so that's a good representation of what that looks and feels like. And I don't want to have too much blue here because, like I said, I'm pretty grateful for what I have, so I don't want my blue to overtake my yellow. Now, what you'll notice is there's these big white spaces in between the blue and the yellow. And what we're going to use that for is, first of all, from a color standpoint, we've got some, the color that would go between green or blue and yellow is green. But also, green for me represents a color of growth. And so I think that it's appropriate that the green would be in between the blue and the yellow. And like, I'm not necessarily going to stay within my lane, but I'm getting the green on paper first. But then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add more water as I blend that yellow and that green together and see what happens with those two colors as they meet. And then a same thing on the blue side. We're just going to see what happens as those two colors meet. And you don't want to change anything. And on the camera, you can kind of see that there's places where the color just is not sticking to the canvas. That's fine. For what we're doing, that's perfectly fine. Um, and now, as I'm adding all of this green and into my yellow, what this green represents to me is growth. So in my experience, things that have made me sad and recently would be things like recently changing my job within the last few years. So that's something that threatens my happiness. Um, and things like we had about six deaths in our family over the last year and a half, and so that threatens our happiness. And then the beautiful thing about sadness is, or any emotion, is that those are temporary feelings, and so that's why sadness to me is a wave, whereas happiness is more of a constant. That's something about me that's kind of constant, but the moments of sadness can ebb and flow. But green is an opportunity for growth. And so, for example, while I did change my job from teaching, which I absolutely love and brings me joy, um, I moved into a different position in higher education. So it's an opportunity for growth. So all of the lessons that my students have taught me over the years, that's something to be happy about. That's something that brings me joy. And then, the sadness is the piece of saying goodbye to them, but then the opportunity for growth is that they've taught me so many lessons over the years that it allowed me to get this newer job in higher education. And I actually have a couple of former students from both of the schools that I taught at, and now they're in college, and that's just bursting with pride at how well they're doing. And it definitely, you know, dampens some of that sadness that I feel that I'm not their teacher. I'm working with them in a different capacity. And so as we look at this, again, the color is not exactly the same on the canvas, but you get a kind of a good feel. We've got a little bit of darker yellow here, some lighter yellow going here. There's green in the middle with these little blotches, blue waves that are, different shades of blue and different intensities of blue, and then there's some green filling in. And so what we're going to do with whole, um, this whole canvas, so right here you can see it, like in the video, you can see there's this reflection of water. We're going to let this dry, and each of these little things are going to start to darken, and the colors are going to start to be brought out. And this is watercolor, so I don't want to mix my acrylic paint with it. Um, in a later video, I can show you what happens when you do that. But we're going to just let this dry and see what it looks like. And then as we start adding acrylic paint, we'll start to define some of these shapes a little bit more. The way that I approach intuitive painting is I very much I think abstractly, but I like to bring that abstraction into a concrete place, into places where people can see what is going on with my emotions. So this is happiness, sadness, and growth. Those are the emotions that I'm demonstrating, but that might end up something else. It might look like something else once we start adding more color to it. And that is how I approach intuitive painting. And um, hopefully I'll see you again for the next video, and I'm gonna just let this dry for the day and go off and do other things. And then I'll get back to you guys for the next video. Have a great day.